Hey people, how you doing? Broken Puppet back another video for today. Got a really fun one. This is how to draw a female face. And I'm going to use this grid technique. And this grid technique is going to help you get everything exactly where you want it to be. You know, so you can have the nose in the right spot, the mouth, the chin, the eyes. And it's going to be very little room for error now, because by using this kind of sort of tool, this kind of sort of pattern, we're going to get everything exactly where it should be. So what we've got here is a 10x7 grid. So I've basically got 10 dots coming upwards, across, and then I've got 7 going across. Each one's on mine's about 2 centimeters apart. You can go smaller or bigger if you want, depending on what paper you have. But yeah, just have say 10x7. It's just a decent size for this, just makes it a lot easier. And what I'm going to start off with, just come across, going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So basically the center one. And from the center one, I'm going to go up 7. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So once we're on this dot, I'm just going to get a compass out. You can draw a freehand if you want, but basically we're going to get a circle in here. And this circle is basically going to come down, so 1, 2, and about a quarter. So it's going to come down to about here. So just a little bit past there. Once you have that, just sketch that in. So I'm just going to whip this in like this. So we've got this very rough kind of circle in here. Let's mark this end up a bit more clearly so you can see it. And basically this is going to be the top part of the head. It's just really good to kind of get a basic sort of circle. Just start off with so you get everything exactly how it should be. So I'm going to start off with this circle just here. Now on this circle just here, or this dot rather where we started, number 7, we're going to do is put a circle now around this dot. Like this, touching this circle line. So it's going to touch that circle line just there. Now inside of this, just here, we're going to do another little circle, just on this side. Another circle just on this side. These two are going to be smaller than that one was. And you basically want to come out so about halfway between this gap. So we got this dot and this dot about halfway. We got this dot and this dot roughly about halfway. You know, if it's not going to be about halfway, the nose might feel a little bit too small. But yeah, this is going to be basically the section for the nose. So if I come up from here now, I'm going to come up to this one. So you got up 1 dot, and we got 1 dot across and 1 dot across. And what we're going to do is a little circle just around these, like this. Little circle just around here. And the idea is this is going to be the pupils. So from these pupils, we can then make the eyes around it. So what we're going to do again, you're going to come in, say about halfway between this line, so about here, and halfway between these 2 dots, so about here. And that's where it's going to start, and it's going to come out roughly, say about just under halfway on either side, just there and there. You can go further if you want, but about halfway is a good sort of length. And then what we're going to do, you're going to create this curve. It's going to come up from that dot, going around that circle, coming over to that one. Now what I like to do is, rather than go straight down to that dot, I like to keep it just a little bit elevated. So this dot here, this line here, is just a fraction lower than this one. Bring that across like so. And when you get to the edge, you're going to flick it out like this. Just create a little bit of an eyelash. We'll create more eyelashes, but we're going to start off with a basic one just like that. And now what we're going to do, coming from this end, from where that point was, I'm going to create this line coming down. Going to touch the bottom of that circle. And you're going to curve up and then just curve down a touch towards the end. So you basically want it to curve up and then down a touch. Just as you kind of connect it. So you see there, got that tiny little bit down there. And then what we're going to do is just create a circular kind of curve. That's now going to come over the top of the eye, like this. And once you have that done, you can do another little circle just inside the eye. And a little circle just here, just kind of get a bit of shine. So this circle is going to be black, and this is going to be a little highlight circle just there. Now what we want to do is the same thing on the other side now. And just create a little curved line just on the inside part of the eye, just there. So again, we're going to start here. Going to bring this line outwards. It's going to curve around. And just as we're about to hit that line, I'm going to create that curve coming out from it. I'm going to create that curve coming around the bottom. It's going to come around the bottom of that circle. And you're going to curve it inwards just as you get to the edge of that line. Little curve just there. Going to have that circular curve just come around the top of the eyelid, just there. And remember, we're going to do another little circle inside the eye, and a little circle on this side for the highlight. Make sure the circles for the highlight on the same side, so on the left side or the right side. Don't put one on the left side and one on the right side. It just makes the eyes look a little bit kind of off, and you don't want that. So coming down from these circular curves we've done at the top, we're going to bring these lines down, just around the inside part of the eye just here, and then we're going to curve these lines just down a touch. So we're going to bring this line down here, and once you get to about this part of the eye, we're going to curve it down a touch. Now it's just going to give us a good point when we start doing some shading. You know, we want that sort of little point just coming off of there. Now the eyebrows, what we're going to do here, we're going to create this curve that's going to come off this way, you know, so you're going to follow the eye line. You're going to curve it around. You don't want to quite come to this dot here, but just pretty close to it, so I have a tiny little gap just between it. I'm going to curve this back around like this. And imagine you're kind of curving. Imagine there's a point, say, around here. This is the kind of point you're aiming at. So you're going to point it around there. And once you get to about here, just a little bit past the eye line, so about here, you're going to curve this line coming down. And I'm going to kind of curve this up, and this is going to curve around and connect onto that line just there. You can do the same on this side now, so it's going to curve around out there. Come back around, imagine you've got the same kind of point, so you're curving off of that to there. Get a little kind of sort of boxy shape kind of there. Curve that around till you connect to the outside. So we've got the eyes, we've got the eyebrows, we've got the base of the nose coming off. So we're going to mark down on that now. It's going to mark down where the sort of mouth will be and the chin will be. So if you come down to this dot here, this is roughly where the mouth's going to be. So what we're going to do, we're going to do this little curve just around this dot just here. I'm going to curve this outwards like so. And curve it here. Now depending on how big you want the mouth, you can touch this dot if you want, but I'm not going to quite touch it. I'm going to get close to it, but not quite touch it. I'm going to curve this line out, come in there. And it's going to get the same distance apart, so there's the same little gap on either side. Now coming up from these, I'm going to curve this up, like this. I'm going to create a little curve down. Now you can make this part as big or as small as you want. It depends on how full you want the lips. Now, because it's going to be the upper lip. Now, I like my lips to be quite full, so I'm going to raise it up a little bit. So it's going to come like that. And then on the bottom bit, come in here, say roughly about almost halfway between these dots. So say about here is where we're going to start this curve. You're going to bring it out. And you're going to aim it up like this. So now we've got the eyes, we've got the nose, we've got the mouth. And now underneath the mouth, if we come down to this dot here, just here, what we're going to do is going to sketch a rough circle around this. Not too big, say about this. And this is going to be our sort of guide, you know, it's going to be at the base of the chin. And what we're going to do is going to bring this line outwards, like this. It's going to curve out. And make sure it's like a little bit below this dot, you don't want to be on this dot. Because what we're going to do, we're going to bring this out, like this. This line's going to cut through this dot. I'm going to curve up. We're going to cut through this line. And I'm going to connect up with this dot, aiming up this way. And that's going to give us our cheek, our jawline rather. So again, we're going to curve up through that dot just there. I'm going to curve up, not quite touching this dot, and then we're going to connect up on those two dots just there. So it's going to give us basis for our jawline. Now, depending on how defined you want it, you can make this more kind of straight edge, you know, but use this as a guideline and sort of work from that. If you want to have more of a square jaw, more of a pointy jaw, and from this kind of curve off and sort of shape that out. You know, this is a great baseline to start and build that off. Come there, make a slight point just a little bit on that tip. So just around here, make sure you got like a little bit of a point just there as it sort of twists. So now you've got the eyes, nose, and we've got the mouth. So once we have this, we can sort of work out if you want to sort of put your ears in there. So where this dot is, just here. Bring this curve around like this. And this can curve up, coming out a bit wider than what this one is. They're going to stop, stand down then, curve this out. And this can curve up to that point just there. So curve a little bit below that dot just there. Curve it up. Curve there. Even if you're not going to sort of like end up seeing the ears, say if your hair's going to cover it, it's worth just sketching a rough faint line in there, just so you can get the understanding of roughly where it goes. Just like that. I'm going to come back to the nose now. So we've got this nose line just here. I'm going to bring this curve up like this. I'm going to curve into that circle. And when I get into that circle, I'm going to create this little curve line just like this. So same as this, I'm going to curve up into that circle, little curve line just like that. Then underneath, I'm going to create this curve. It's going to loop around and follow those circles just there. Just like so. And when you've got this circle just here, if you want to sort of bring up a little line, just come like this and see what's curving into there. Get an idea of where you're going to start doing your shadows. Now we'll get to that point afterwards, but it's sort of just putting everything in where it's supposed to be for the minute. So now we've got that done, what should we go for next? Let's go for the neck next. So what I like to do between these two dots just here, come where it's about here. I like to bring this down. I like to make my neck roughly say about 2-3 sort of spaces. So I'm going to come down here, and it gets wider as it comes down. So I'm going to start off here, come down wider, come down here, come wider. Again, depending on the kind of person you're sort of drawing, you know, how sort of wide you want a neck, will kind of represent how sort of, you know, large person actually is as a person. You know, if they're really kind of petite and really small, they're going to have a much smaller neck. You know, obviously if they're slightly more kind of curvy, they're going to have, you know, a slightly wider neck. You don't exaggerate it too much, you know, because it will sort of make it a little bit unpleasant. You know, sometimes it's worth just kind of like working with the right shapes, not against the wrong kind of shapes. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being big, it's just the way it generally goes, you know, it's just a bit like when you're sort of drawing it, especially from this kind of angle, it's just a little bit unflattering. If it's a bit of a side angle, it ain't too bad because you kind of work with the shadows and curves. But yeah, if you're making the neck too wide here, it makes the face look a bit kind of out of proportion. Yeah, it's just a bit kind of an odd way to sort of draw it. But anyway, now we've got that done. You've got a rough face in there, so everything's roughly where you want it to be. So once you've got this done, we can start working about hair. Now, a lot of people get the wrong idea about hair. They have this sort of thing, they expect they kind of sort of like draw the hair kind of off the top part of the head just here. Now, you've got to kind of give room, you know, understanding where the hair sort of starts. So this kind of angle where you're facing forwards, the hair is going to start roughly, say, about here. So it's not going to quite be on this dot, I don't think. Now, some people it might be, you know, it depends on the person, but I like to start, say, roughly around here. So if you imagine this kind of line like this, if I sort of bring this curved line like this, curve around here, to there, curve around there, to like here. You want the hair to kind of start off that way. You want to start, you know, this part of the forehead to kind of show, you know, but you want the hair to kind of start off from this kind of angle, depending on the kind of hairstyle you have, really. So for this one, I'm thinking, I'm gonna bring this hair kind of out like this. I'm gonna have a bit of a center part, and I think, you know, it's just a nice, easy kind of one sort of kind of work from. So I'm gonna curve this line coming outwards like this. And this, I think, is gonna curve around. On this side, I'm gonna kind of curve them behind the ear, so it's gonna tuck behind the ear. And then the other one, we'll do the hair in front of it, so you kind of get the idea of both kind of ways. So I'm creating this curved line from here, going down like this. And what I'm doing is building up shapes. Rather than building up sort of hair strands, I'm going to start building up shapes. So I'm going to start off with this as my main first shape. And a little bit coming here, because I want a little bit of hair coming just in front of this ear, just here. Nothing too crazy. Just a little bit there. And then hair's going to sort of bulge out from this way, so I'm going to have this curve up like this. I'm going to have one section that's going to curve here. And you always want to make sure the hair comes past this head shape, which imagine this is where our heads would finish. So obviously the hair is going to be, you know, make it a bit elevated than that, so the hair's going to come much higher than what that part of the head is. So for here, I'm going to start, say, around here, so the hair's going to come up to this sort of point. So it's going to curve out like this. It's going to curve down to there. So I've got a few different sort of sections just here. And then this side, I'm going to have this curve out. Have this loop down a touch, and this one's going to go over that ear just there. I'm going to loop this out a touch, so I've got a bit of nice shape to it. I'm going to get another one kind of curving up around here. You know, if you're not too sure what hair to do, go like on Google and stuff. You know, look up sort of hairstyles and stuff. You know, because everyone's got a different kind of preference, kind of hairstyles they like. You know, just try and find one you sort of like and what kind of works for you. So using this as the base sort of template for the top part of the head, like this. And then I want this hair kind of flowing down more. So we've got the sort of top part of the hair now, and I want it kind of flowing down. So I'm going to have imagine come this way. I'm going to use this kind of S, you know, sort of formula. So it's going to curve down like this. And then when I get to here, it's going to come in and create this sort of S shape like this. So I want the hair to have this kind of flow like this. Same on this side, it's going to come here. And I want a nice kind of flow, so I want it to kind of have this kind of like bend. Now, depending on hairstyle, it might be straight, but generally, like, you know, the S kind of curves, it's just a really kind of complementary kind of sort of shape that really kind of works, especially on female figures. You know, it doesn't matter if it's on the body, like on the legs, the arms, you know, the S curve just really works. You know, you generally find that men are usually a bit more sort of like kind of sort of boxy kind of shaped. You know, we're a bit more sort of narrow. You know, I guess in a way that kind of makes things look a little bit more kind of sort of masculine. You know, but for women, you definitely want more sort of curve, you know, sort of curved sort of shapes. So like S curves and sort of circles are definitely the way to go. So again, I'm just drawing this down, just plotting in these kind of sort of shapes coming down. On this side, I'm going to have this one curving like this, just creating this kind of sort of shape around here. And this one I'm going to have curve coming up like so. And then kind of connect there, I think. Leave on the inside part just there. So now we've got everything kind of roughly in position. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to a higher pencil now. So that was a HB. So now I'm going to switch to, say, like a 3B or something. Just something a bit darker, so I can put my main bit of details, and then we're going to come back and shade afterwards. You know, because you don't want to start off too hard. You want to make sure everything's nice and soft like this. And once you've got this, put your hard details in, and then we can rub out the bits we don't need, and then start putting the shading in. So I'm going to start off with the nose. So I'm going to start off, there's a bit of shadow here, just underneath the nose, just there. I want some shadow underneath this pot nose, just here. So I'm going to make those two bits there just a bit darker. I want a bit of shadow on the outside of this part of the nose here, so I'm going to make this a little bit darker just on the outside, just here. And again on the outside, just here. So we're picking out the key sort of shapes now. And from the key shapes, everything's going to start to show through and sort of make more sense. Now when doing the eyes, you know, I would say it's always a good point to make sure the upper eyelid, like this part here, is quite thick. Especially on a female, you want like a nice, you know, big sort of, you know, eyelash. And if you start off with a thicker line first, it just makes it nice and easier to do. So rather than keeping it like a thin sort of line, just make a nice bold line. Now see if you've got to have sort of makeup on, sort of get that sort of effect. And then once you have that done, you can start working on your eyelashes. Now it depends on how many you want, you know, like depends if you want like real eyelashes or false eyelashes. You know, but you generally want to make sure you kind of get this nice kind of curve to them. Sort of fairly even spaced apart. You know, I tend to put more on the outside, and then slowly get thinner as I get towards the inside. But yeah, it depends on the kind of eyelashes you want, really. Now, if you're a man, you might want to sort of maybe Google it, because women generally have a bit of a better understanding, I guess, because they use makeup a lot more than we do, I guess. So they're used to eyelashes. If you're not too sure about it, like I said, just Google it. You know, just put in like, you know, sort of Pinterest or Google, and look up eyelashes, kind of get an understanding of different kind of ones you have. Because eyelashes are a very big feature of the face, you know, especially the eyes. You know, it really changes up. You know, small eyelashes, like big eyelashes, will completely change the look of the, you know, the face. You know, it sounds silly, but it's a major part. That one little section there will change the entire face. So yeah, so I've got that done here, and I've redefined this line around here now. So around the side parts of the eye, made that center part nice and dark, and I'm going to make this line here above the eye nice and dark too. Now the darker the eye, the more sort of curve I want in that area. I'm not going to go too dark on this inside section just here low, just mainly on this upper eyelid part just here. I can bring little eyelashes on the bottom part of the eye as well. Like that, just coming down. And what I like to do on the eye, just coming soft on the bottom, and darker towards the top. Just like a nice even shade coming down. Just get like a nice even sort of shade for the eye people there, just makes it really nice and easy to get a good eye. So once I've got that done, get this eyelash in here. Sorry, eyebrow rather. I don't know why, but I always end up saying the wrong ones when I'm filming. Eyebrow and eyelash, I always forget that mixed up. Too many words eyes in there. So what I'm going to do is using this kind of flick motion. So you see the way my hand's going? And I'm kind of building this eyelash up with sort of like, you know, single kind of sort of strands. And as I get towards the end here, I'm going to make it sort of a bit more kind of curvy. You know, lots of different ways of doing it, but it's just a really nice way to start kind of getting like a nice kind of build up to it. You know, if you have a mechanical pencil, give your pencil like a nice sharpen afterwards, you can sort of pick out some really like nice little kind of fine hair details. But you want to have a nice kind of flow to it. You want to be a bit sort of smooth. If it's a bit kind of rugged and a bit kind of like all over the place, it sometimes goes against the actual feature. So just be aware of that. Just going to put a tiny bit of shadow underneath this eyelash just here, just there. So now I've got that done, I'm going to come over to the other eye now. Just going to move this thing out of the way so I don't want it to drop. So again, we're going to make this nice and bold. Just fold that up. Curve that out. Getting those eyelashes. You know, when it's a face, front face like this, you know, getting it sort of nice and symmetric is good. But depending on the kind of expression like the person's pulling, like if you sort of want to make them sort of pull a certain kind of face, you know, the face might not always necessarily be symmetric at this angle. You know, the kind of face she's pulling now is a very sort of like symmetric kind of pose, so we can sort of do it all very symmetric. But yeah, if she was sort of say smiling or smirking or pouting, you know, sometimes you might find there's a little bit uneven in different areas because people sort of like tense different kind of muscles in the face. So yeah, Yeah, for this particular one, we can keep it nice and symmetric, but it's worth keeping in mind that it won't always necessarily be that way depending on the kind of face you're doing. A little bit of shadow just underneath that eyelash just there. And again, I'm just going to bring in this eyebrow now. Now you might find flipping the paper kind of helps to kind of get the right kind of evenness. Like here, I find this angle a little bit awkward to do. I'm keeping the paper set at this kind of angle, but if I was doing this normally for myself, I'd probably flip my paper around, do it upside down. You know, but because I'm filming for you guys, I'm trying to keep it at a nice kind of set angle. But yeah, generally you probably find there's going to be certain angles that are going to be much more comfortable for you to draw from. And if you do have that, then I recommend just kind of flipping your paper around and kind of getting in those positions. You know, the more comfortable you are, the better your design's going to be, and the more kind of sort of symmetric and everything's going to be as well. It's going to come down now. Now when doing the mouth, I like to make the outside edge just here quite dark. I like to make it a little bit lighter as we kind of get here. A little bit darker just underneath the center part of the mouth. A little bit lighter and a little bit darker on the edge. You can just do one dark line for it if you want, but I generally prefer to do that. I just think it looks better that way. Just my personal opinion. Once you've got that done, sort of decide how you want your jawline. And like I said, you know, if you want to sort of follow the shape, if you want to make it a little bit sort of thinner, a bit more sort of stretched out. You know, because everyone's got a different sort of shaped jaw. You know, so again, it's a big characteristic. So I'm going to bring mine up like this. Gonna make mine quite pointy when it hits this kind of area just here. And shake it up just like that. Now on this side, I want to get a little bit of neck showing. So what I'm going to do is make sure the neck is showing just a little bit on here. So I'm going to do just a little bit of line just here till that hair strand hits there. This side, I might not necessarily show it off, but I like to sort of show a little bit of neck. So you kind of, again, it just kind of sort of shows the figure of the kind of person. You know, it really kind of helps in this kind of angle. So now we've got it done, I'm going to bring it up here. Now for the hair, I'm going to make these kind of lines quite bold. You can make it a bit more subtle if you want, but it's just a really nice way of sort of drawing it. And it's, in my opinion, it's a better way of doing it, because when you understand that, you know, drawing hair should be rather about sections rather than hair strands. You know, a lot of people sort of want to draw like those kind of lines, and it's like, you can do it that way, but it's much easier, you get a much better flow if you kind of break into different sections. So what I mean by that, basically you've got this one here. So I've got this part of the ear just here, I want this part of the ear showing. So I want this initial part of the hair here just kind of tucking underneath it. So this first section, I've got this line curving up like this. It's curving around just like there. It's looping up like this. It's going to connect up here like this. So this is like the first kind of hair section. And from that, I'm going to get another one just here. This one's going to curve a little bit more, where it sort of shows you how the hair sort of changing direction as it starts going behind the ear. This one here is going to kind of sit on this hair bit, so this hair bit is going to kind of go here. And then this one's going to kind of sit on top of that. It's going to curve around like this. Then that one at the back is going to curve around like so. So you see, I've created these different sections that sit on top now. I'm also going to do that with a little one just in front. Nothing crazy, I just want to get this little hair strand just kind of coming here. Just in front of that part of the ear. And once you have this, you can either sort of just put a few kind of lines in between it to kind of sort of make up the shape, like so. You could have like, say, a couple lines coming up beneath it like this. The trick depends on how sort of detailed you kind of want it. You know what you can do, which I quite like to do, and that's when you get to the bottom, I'm going to flip these lines using this kind of sort of motion like this. So you see, I'm kind of sort of whipping my finger, you know, back and forth like this. And I'm doing it with the direction of the hair. Now it's going to come up like this. It's going to create a sort of shadow on the bottom part, and then follow the direction of the top. I'm just going to keep flicking it around, keep my shading nice and tight. You know, I want my lines to be nice and close together. So get a nice evenness. Darker around there. So you see, you get this nice kind of sort of brush motion, and that builds up this part of the hair. And what this does, you know, you sort of do that and you get this nice highlight in the center. And this really kind of helps you sort of single out your sections. And each time you do it, kind of make sure the highlight's a little bit in a slightly different area. and it kind of gives each bit its own kind of characteristic. So you see here, I've made this highlight here, so this bit sits separate to this. And as you start to layer it up, it just gives a really, really nice, simple, elegant kind of effect to it. You know, generally, like when I'm sort of drawing, like 90% of the time, this is kind of how I will do my hair on pictures. So it's using that kind of whip motion, just getting a shade nice and tight, you see? Kind of get that, and then again from here, like so. Now if the hair is really kind of curvy and it sort of bends more than once, sometimes I might maybe add 2 highlights in the hair. I will do that on the lower section so you kind of see what I'm on about. Now feel free to kind of add like a harder line just here and there if you want. You know, sometimes it just makes that little bit slight unevenness, which, you know, hair really is sometimes. You know, you don't have too many of it, but every now and again a little line like that in between it just kind of helps. It kind of gives a bit more sort of shape to it. But just don't overdo it on that, you know, because that's very easy to overdo it. I'm going to bring this one up like this. And again, just bring this one kind of curving down like this. Bring out your shadow in between it. Just like that. So you see, rather than sort of doing like hair strands, you sort of brought up those kind of layers and together it's made this nice kind of effect, which is I brought together the whole of the head. And just till then I'm going to get the outline. Just a little bit darker in certain areas. You don't have to, I just like to sort of really define the hair. Kind of like so. You know, once that's repeated the whole way through, it just gives like a really nice effect. Now we'll sort that eventually, but we're going to come back down to the face now. So what I'm going to do, now we kind of have everything kind of roughly where we want it to be. I'm going to come in, I'm going to rub out the lines we don't need. And just line up a few of those little areas, like the little sort of dots. Now I won't rub them completely out so you guys can get a rough sort of sense of where they still are. So when you're doing your shading, I don't want to completely eliminate those. Yeah, just to kind of give you a sense of where you can put them. Just gonna rub those ones out for now. And we'll do like the hair ones as we kind of get to those areas. We're gonna start with the face, and what I'm gonna do, just grab me a little bit of paper. Just as an example. You know what you can do all your shading on here, but if you want to get really nice smooth skin, a really nice way of doing it is just get a separate bit of paper like this, get your pencil, just give it really good going over like this. Just make yourself a nice block of shadow, like this. And then using a smudge tool, like one of these. So you got these, and then what you want to do, just draw on this with that, just kind of build up now. So you're basically just building up a little bit on the tip of your smudge tool. And you can kind of use this to sort of smooth shade on the face. So I'm going to start off with, say, the nose. So the bottom part of the nose here, I want to get some shadow coming around the nose. So now I'm going to use this and I'm just going to brush this onto that nose part just there. On the side, there. On the side, just there. And what I'm going to do, where we've done that initial circle, I'm going to get a bit of shadow kind of coming across where that circle was initially. So we just sort of drawing with this now, and what it does, because obviously it's not a pencil, and it's got a blend, it's just making a nice smooth tone that we can use for the skin. Just like so, so you see I've got this blend arc around the nose now, just there. I've got on the bottom part of the nose, just here. And then just following that kind of sort of circle around the nose. You can do a little line just in the center part as well. Depending on the person, sometimes you kind of get a bit of a shadow kind of there. But yeah, it really depends on the person's kind of nose, particularly for that area. Now again, it goes the same technique, so I'm just going to get this, and I'm just going to rub this onto our pencil. And then coming here above this eye now, I'm going to start on that line we've done above the eye. So I'm going to bring this across like this. I'm going to bring it the whole way across, touching the eyebrow in this section. So in this section here, it's going to be completely shaded. Just like that. A little bit just underneath the eye. And basically want to create this little circular highlight just here. So the idea is I'm sort of shading kind of around that sort of circular area just there. I'm going to put a little bit of shadow on this section of the eye just here. A little bit just here. But I don't want it in this corner. I want a nice highlight in that corner part of the eye just there. So don't touch that area. Now again, I'm going to bring this underneath the eye now. So I'm going to get this little shadow just coming underneath the eye. I'm going to start off, a bit sort of stronger in this corner just here. Then working our way across this way. Just like so. So you see you've got the top part and you've got the bottom part. And now from here, where we've done this initial circle, we're going to bring that line up. Remember those two lines we've done that sort of went up this way and that line that went there? We're basically going to shadow across those lines now. So it's going to come up here. And where you've got this line that come down this way, we're going to shade on the opposite side, not on the inside, because we want to highlight around the eye. We're going to shade around there. I'm going to shade this roughly down this line. And this is going to give us the nose bridge. Just like that. So you can see you've got that sort of shadow just there. And that really kind of helps define the nose shape. You're going to do the same on the other side now. So it's going to come across there, build in that space around the back, and that's going to curve down that line, and it's going to blend around that line, filling in that area. You just want to create this nice kind of light coming down the nose. And once you've got that, just put a bit more shadow, just kind of get like this almost a little thin kind of line down the center. And eventually, if you want, you can come down with a little rubber tool and just get like a really smooth little line. So you get this nice little highlight down the center if you want to. So I'm going to do the same around the other eye now that we've done on this side. So I'm going to get the shadow. I'm going to come underneath this part just here. Now you can achieve fairly dark shading this way, but what I tend to do is I tend to use this initially like this. Get the base kind of shading in there. And then what I do towards the end is I come in my pencil and make the areas darker, and then I just shade off of the pencil. Now you will see what I mean when we do it. But yeah, I just use this to kind of build up the soft shades, and then I come in later to really define my really hard shades that I want. So again, I've got this bit around just here, a little bit just underneath the eye, just kind of curving off that way, just like so. And then what I'm going to do is kind of flick this down just like this. So you get this little shadow just kind of coming off of this part. Now I want to make sure this part here is darker, because I want this curve to be more prominent. But just a little shade just kind of coming off. Just down around there. It's going to help us sort of determine this kind of sort of cheekbone sort of shape that we want. That we will get to eventually. So now I've got it done, I'm going to get some more in this. I'm going to come to his lips. Now where we've got these little mark for the lips just here, I'm just going to real simple. Start off with like a little ball shape in the centre of this one. A little ball shape in the centre of that one. And then kind of join out the rest around the side of it. Like so. And once you got it done, I'm just going to grab me pencil. I'm just going to go dark, and I'm going to put a few little flick lines just coming up, just to kind of sort of define it, so you get a few little lines that you would naturally get in the lips. And if the edge is a little bit sort of overly kind of blended out, or a bit too sort of smear or smudged, you can just come with your pencil and just define it ever so slightly. So just going to put a bit of shadow just across that bottom part just there. And then come back in and just blend out those lines we just done. Just like so. And the bottom lip, I'm going to get this line that comes across this top part just here. So we're going to just have that bottom part just there. And then across this bottom part of this lip, I'm going to bring the shadow across it like this. It's going to come up a bit higher, but you want to keep this little white line in the centre. Now do your best not to lose that little white line down the centre of the lip. Get about even on both sides. And once I've got that done, I'm just going to get me pencil. I'm just going to define that sort of shape around it. I want to put a little bit of pencil just underneath it, it's a touch bit darker, because I want a bit of shadow just underneath this part of the lip. So rather than make the lip dark, you know, from the bottom upwards. I'm going to dark underneath it. I'm doing a kind of curve motion, so I'm going to kind of curve like this. Remember we've done that circle just here? Imagine you're kind of sort of sketching around that. You know, we've done that circle, the center of it will be the light section, and this is going to be the darker section. So you see, you kind of have this now. And now we have this, we're going to come back up to the nose. So basically the center part of the nose just here. We're going to bring this little line, just curving just there. And again, just there. And what we're going to do is just coming down from this nostril, just on the side of it, I'm going to flex some shadow. Coming down like this, and again on this side, just look a little bit of shadow like this. So we're just going to go get this little kind of highlights just in the center part here, which is really going to show you how this part of the mouth kind of works. Now you don't want no harsh kind of lines in there, and you want that nice little shine to really sort of like bring that sort of shape out. So I find that's the best way to do it. So a little shadow on the inside, and then just following down from the nostril, curve around it, just create a little curve around it, and then do a trick for you. So you see you've got this nice kind of effect in the center part of the mouth now. Now coming down to the side parts here, so where you've got this corners of the mouth, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to create some shadow. It's going to come around it. I'm not going to do this, imagine there's a little circle at the bottom here. I'm not going to do that section, so basically curving around it. So what it's doing is make this little kind of curve, this little kind of flat, again, which just kind of sort of shows the shape of the face. Just come in there, and just come in there. So you see, it just kind of makes the mouth a little bit kind of indented in the corners, where it should be. So again, now we have this, we're going to start working to different kind of areas now. So I'm going to come down from the sort of cheek, from the jawline rather. So the jawline I'm going to build up very sort of just subtly, just kind of build this up. And where this sort of connects around here, I'm going to get a bit of shadow just coming up here. Just kind of curving into this section. Leaving this quite light, I don't want to go too dark here. I'm just going to build this shadow around into this section just here. And where you got this nostril, just here. Just rub out that little line, just a little bit, too much on display there. I'm going to bring this little line just coming down just this way, and I'm going to kind of blend around. I want it very soft, I don't want it very defined. You know, some people it might be a bit defined, but you generally find if you make that line more defined, on a face that isn't smiling, you know, because if you're smiling it shows off a lot more. On a face that isn't smiling, if you have a line there, you generally get it on an older person. So if you're drawing someone who's a bit older, you'll kind of need that, but if you want to make them younger, I recommend not having too much of a fine line on that section. Now where we done that circle initially, remember the circle that kind of went here to here. Now if you imagine coming down from there, just kind of pointing towards the mouth, this kind of section. Now it's roughly where you want the cheekbone, so I'm going to have this sort of shadow just coming here. Like so. Just kind of curve up, connect to that part just there. And this shadow can kind of connect around in this kind of circular area. Just there. So imagine come down to here, blend this up, and kind of aim the shading as if you're sort of tucking into where this is here. So the idea is you want to create a nice little highlight just in this area. It's very handy sometimes to use your finger as well. Kind of just helps kind of sort of blend out certain areas and just kind of get a little bit smoother. So yeah, so you can see it kind of builds up in that shape. And once you kind of have it, you know, if this line feels a little bit too strong, you can just put a little bit more shadow with your pencil. Just around it. You don't want to make the shadow too strong, but you just want enough to sort of tell that it's actually sort of changing shape where it kind of curves. So I tend to put just a bit more across that bottom, just there, like so. So you see, you kind of build it up there, and that's giving you a nice kind of shadow just there. So now we're going to do the same on the other side now. So I'm going to quickly sketch in a little bit extra just on there. Now it's important to remember the way I'm drawing this is that the light source is kind of coming from the front, so you get like nice and even kind of lighting. If you had lighting coming from a different part of the body, say behind the face or around the back or to the side, you wouldn't get the exact kind of sort of shadow on both sides of the face. It'd be a bit different. And I will try and teach that in my other tutorials as well. Yeah, just try and remember that this one is from the concept that the light is coming from the front. Now that's why we don't have much of a harsh shadow, we don't have much of a shadow underneath the nose, we don't have too much shadow around the side parts. Now we're just kind of building it up. You know, we're just keeping it nice and simple really. So again, just going to bring that curved line as if we're doing a sort of jawline, just making it a tiny bit darker there. we just want a hint of like indent on this part. Now, you can go as dark as you want. We're going fairly light with this. I don't want to sort of overcomplicate it too much, so we're going fairly light. And that's fitting into that area just like that. So now we've got it done. I'm going to start working in a few other little areas. So just going to bring in this ear shape we have. I'm just going to bring a little detail inside the ear. So I'm just going to bring a little curve like this. Just curving down. Create a little loop inside it. I'm just going to have a bit of shadow just here. A bit of shadow just towards the back. A bit on the inside part just there. Just get a bit of hair that kind of goes underneath the bottom bit. Now you can always accessorize if you want to kind of give her like earrings and stuff like that. For this one, again, I'm just keeping it fairly simple, so I'm probably not going to add any of that sort of stuff. You know, but if you'd like to see a video on how to kind of accessorize and kind of add little extras to the picture to make it more interesting, I can sort of teach that. So yeah, if that is something you want to know, just let me know in comments and I'll get one done. Just going to define this line around the eye now, just so it's a bit darker, so it kind of matches up on this side. Just want to make sure the eye darkness is matching up. You know, if it's not quite matching up, it's going to look a little bit kind of odd. I'm looking at here, the shadow's just a tiny bit off. Just define that line over the top a touch, just like that. There we go. So now we've got it done, I'm going to come back down to here. I'm going to start working on that part here. So I'm going to sort of show you how it looks like when I put, say, two bends. So this bit here is going to have two bends in it. So I'm going to bring in this line. Like so. This one coming around there. So you can see it's going to bend like this and then this way. So I'm going to have a shine in this area and I'm also going to have a little shine just here. So I'm going to bring in the lines coming this way. Initially, so I'm following that hairline shape. I'm going to create a shadow in the center, and I'm sort of like hitting both sides. So I'm sort of going up and down. So I'm kind of using this sort of bending motion like this. So I'm hitting it, flicking it out both ways. So you're not getting no hard edge either way. You're sort of getting a nice soft edge on both sides. Just building it up, keeping your lines nice and tight. You know, you want your lines nice and close together. You know, if you see my other videos, you know, sort of explains why that is. Because if your lines are too far apart, it's just not going to make much sense. It's going to look a bit too kind of far away. You know, you want to make, you know, nice and tight. You know, get nice and even, smooth shading. If your lines are a bit kind of erratic and they're not close together, it's going to look a bit sort of jumbled and a bit kind of sort of sketchy. You know, which is okay if you're trying to achieve that particular kind of sort of style of look. You know, because it is something that people do that to achieve. I tend to do it quite a lot in my design sometimes. But it's one of those ones you only want to achieve if you're doing it on purpose. You know, if you're not doing it on purpose, you don't particularly want to end up with that look. You know, I prefer that look to kind of be something that is kind of meant to be and that's controlled rather than accidental. So yeah, I'm just going to do the other parts of the hair now. So I'm going to flick in those lines, just create a highlight. You know, you don't necessarily have to put a highlight on every single one of them, but it's just a nice easy way of doing it. You know, it just doesn't complicate it too much. You know, just kind of follow the thing, you know, the idea of it, and it looks good in the end. You know, I'd say once you kind of got it mastered down to this kind of basic sort of technique, then sort of kind of expand onto that. You know, doing other sort of ideas. You know, but if you just want to make nice looking hair to begin with, you know, just kind of get a bit, you know, just to start getting an understanding of it. You know, just treat it as if like there's just like that nice kind of highlight in between each section. And try to keep it as sections, as I said, it just makes it much more easier and just looks so much more smooth and nicer. You know, it's not until you start going into sort of doing like say photographic kind of work where it's 100% accurate that you want to start doing say individual kind of hair strands and stuff. You know, but for general shading like this, you know, we just kind of get just a general understanding of how to draw. You know, then I recommend doing it this way. So I flick these lines, kind of filling in that shape. Down. I tend to find this is a bit easier to do once your pencil goes a little bit blunt as well. You know, it's always handy sometimes keeping, say, one perfectly kind of sharpened pencil and one kind of blunt pencil. You know, blunt pencils have their, well, quite a lot of uses, you know, especially when it comes to sort of shading and bold sections and stuff. You know, 9 times out of 10 my pencils usually are blunt when I'm using them. So putting the hair down there, and then again if you want to sort of darken areas, that just kind of comes behind the neck, on the sort of chin, just darken those up a touch. You know, if I was drawing this, I'd probably go much more dark. I'm keeping it fairly light, so it's fairly simple. You know, just this way you can kind of still see everything. You know, I tend to go quite high contrast when I'm sort of normally doing my sort of work, so I'd normally go a lot darker. But the bottom is, darker I go, it's just easier to teach you guys when it's nice and light, we can kind of see everything. And it's easier to achieve, so when you're sort of starting to learn, it's just an easier way of doing it. Shadows behind that part of the neck. I'm going to come onto this side now. So remember, like this part of the hair, so it's going to sit in front of this part of the ear, so I'm going to have this curved down like this. Like that. And start putting in my shade. Just keep working it in there, just getting a nice kind of highlight. Excuse me. Just keep building it up like so. Once you've got this done, just going to put a bit of paper down, just don't need that right this second. Just going to bring in those other sections now. A little hint at the edge to the bottom maybe. The other one's going to curve in like this, so that sort of cuts the ends out part of the neck. So quite like that. So there we go, yeah, so just kind of building your shape. So you kind of got your sort of shapes in there. And once you've got your shapes, just follow the same routine we've done. So I'm going to put that shadow in there. So I'm going to quickly just speed through and just do that, so you kind of got all this hair kind of a bit stung. It's the same thing we just sort of just taught you. So you see, you've got that part of the hair sort of put in there. So what I'm going to do just here, I'm just going to flick in a little bit just underneath this kind of hair. Just kind of where you got loose kind of hair strands underneath where it sort of connects up to it. Same on this side, just as it kind of curves around. So a few just in there. And I'm going to get a bit of shadows on the forehead as well. So I'm going to have a little bit of shadow just coming in this sort of section just here. And curving around the side. And same pretty much on the other side. And it's very important to remember, you know, that you will get sort of shading on the forehead as well. Now I see a lot of people sort of not too really sure what to do with that. It's just worth putting it in there. It just makes it much more realistic, and it kind of needs it, you know. It's just not right without it. You know, everywhere's got shadow. So again, just kind of bring it on this side, just bring it on this side as well. So just coming across from the sides like this. A little bit just around that center part where the eyebrows kind of connect. Like that. Now I'm going to get some underneath the neck as well now, so what I'm going to do is get this little kind of sort of section just here. Start off fairly dark, like this. And coming from underneath it, I'm going to use the side-to-side motion and kind of blend this out. So I'm going to start off with a fairly light tone, I'm going to come in and sort of like define it a bit more. this way. Just imagine sort of bringing two lines kind of down here, kind of curving almost around here. It's when you get the sort of side lines of the neck. I'm not going to go too far down low, just going to sort of shade it around there. Once it's got down to about here, I'm going to sort of create this little line. I'm going to get the rest of the shadow on there, so I'm going to get this little line defined underneath this jaw. Same on that side, so you want a bit more sort of heavier sort of shading underneath that neck. And now the direction of this will change depending on the shape of the face. Like at this sort of angle, you kind of get it, so the light's kind of coming down, so it's kind of reflecting sort of chin and sort of stretches out. You know, obviously if it's coming sort of sideways, then the shadow will sort of come more to the curve. But yeah, that's just kind of basic, kind of nice way of sort of building it out. Shadow around those edges. And once you've got that done, you know, the sort of side, this areas you want to make sort of darker. You know, this is the sort of stage where you really want to sort of start refining and just kind of bring everything out. So I'm looking at it right now and I'm sort of looking at, you know, the areas that I want to make darker. So I'm going to bring in a bit darker shadows around this part of the eye, just here. So I'm just going to put a bit of dark shade in my pencil and then sort of blend that out. Behind around here really kind of brings out this highlight inside the eye as well, which is a really nice thing to do. And it's very important to remember, you know, we have highlights and the shadows will kind of bring those out. So here's the sort of stage we're going to start bringing out those highlights. So you have this nice kind of highlight in the eye. So again, I'm going to bring this sort of dark shadow a bit more down here. Just kind of curving around the outside edge of the eye, which again is going to sort of tell the shape, and that's going to help sort of bring out this highlight in the cheekbone. Eyebrows a touch darker, I think. Nothing too crazy, just say about that. And come down to the nose, and I'm going to sort of put a bit more shadow just around the nose. Going over the areas that we just done, just kind of making the outside edges a little bit darker so they sort of show off a little bit more. So just outside parts of the nostril. Just a little bit on that sort of circle part around the nose that we initially did. Again, just blend those out. You know, at this sort of stage, you tend to find all the time, you know, women have a good understanding of this because obviously we're doing makeup, you know, sort of contouring and stuff to understand where the lights and darks are. But don't worry, it's something, you know, everyone can learn. It's not something that's just gender specific. You know, it just takes a little bit more practice. So what I'm going to do here is just bring a bit more shadow just over this top lip, just like this. Blend that out because I want to keep that lip nice and smooth. Now what I'm going to do here, I'm going to bring a little detail. So where we've got a little highlight just going through the centre part of the lip, that little line, I'm going to make it a bit more prominent. So I'm going to put a bit of shadow that's coming to like a nice hard edge around it. And I'm going to curve down, I'm going to make a few little lines just kind of breaking it up. So it's going to kind of break up into little sort of shapes, like little kind of squares and rectangles. Just like so, so you get as much more kind of realistic little shine on the lips. Now I've got it done, I'm just going to get a little shadow again, just underneath that bottom part of the lip, just there. So you see, we're just defining it now, we're just kind of bringing out those little shadows, you know, we put that initial sort of subtle shade in there, so now we can start defining it and just bringing everything out. So again, they've got a little highlight in the chin there, so it just really brings out that highlight. You know, if you want to get a bit of a sort of chin and, you know, little centre part, you can do. So imagine what was before, just put it down, I've got like a little sort of, you know, sort of shade just there now, which has a little dimple in the chin if you want to have that. You know, I put it in there just as an option, you know, not everyone has that, it just really depends if you want that particular style of chin. Once that's done, again, I'm just going to add a little bit more shadow just around the corner of his mouth. But just bringing that shadow a little bit smaller than what we've done before, you know, it's basically kind of, it's like bringing the shadow more towards the centre. So rather than going over everything we've done, it's just those little centre bits. Just bring those shadows around this part of the eye. So this one matches up with the other. Just darkening around that and blending it out. Just like so. Yeah, as you start to draw the face, you realise there's little key things that really sort of help sort of show the face dramatically. Like I said, like the corner part of the eye here is such a very nice little feature, and it really sort of helps show the kind of 3D-ness of the eye. Yeah, making sure you have this kind of shadow coming down towards the nose, so you have like this bridge of nose, so you get this nice shine down the centre. You know, often gets overlooked sometimes. Some people just don't do these kind of shadows. You know, if you're doing them for realistic kind of purposes, you know, it really does help. Again, that sort of shadows around the nose just kind of makes it sort of, you see the kind of button nose, so you get a little shadow just across here. So you get that there, where we draw that little circle just there. We'll make that sort of nose stand out like more of a button kind of nose. And again, another really nice little feature. Using pencil around the wrong way there. You know, don't sort of stress about these. These are sort of things you're going to learn the more you do it. And as you start doing it, you start to include these things more often than that, and you learn how to kind of modify them. And just start learning those little kind of sort of little techniques and little kind of hacks to make sort of things look realistic. You know, like videos like this can really help you sort of learn those kind of ones. You know, it's the whole kind of process of them. You know, like rather than trying to teach you everything in one go, just kind of sort of like start you on a journey of it. A bit more shadow just coming down this sort of cheekbone just here. So let's get you a little shadow just there and there. Using my smudge stick. Just making a bit more of a defined line now, so you can see it's kind of start to be like a sort of cheekbone out more. Now, it really depends on how kind of prominent you want it to be. You know, if you don't want it to be very prominent, don't make it come to a very hard edge, sort of blend it out. But if you want like a nice kind of sort of defined cheekbone, you know, then kind of come to more of a hard edge. Just define your hair around the outside. And you get your little shadow on the hair if you want as well. So when you kind of where the hair comes around, sometimes you get a bit of drop shadow. So imagine this part of the hair is kind of sort of in this little section just here. So what we're going to do is sort of curve this line from this hairline around this sort of shape. Just going to curve there. And now I'm just going to put this very sort of like subtle kind of shadow. Now nothing too kind of crazy. And get this little hint of the shadow kind of being a bit in front sometimes. You know, you're not always necessarily going to get that. It really depends on the kind of sort of shape of the hair and how much kind of volume it has. If it sort of bumps out, you know, if it's very sort of flat to the head, you might not necessarily get it. But if it's like here, where it's a little bit kind of elevated, you can sometimes get it. But yeah, I think we'll call it there, people. I think that does a trick. Now that's the little techniques. I'm going to help you guys just how to draw a nice face in proportion. Now I said, if you sort of follow that format, especially with the dots, you know, if we just follow those formats, they'll just help you get everything exactly where you want it to be. Now, if you just follow where I've done nose, you know, where we've done nose for the nose, the pupils for the eyes, or sort of shape, you know, like coming in halfway between them, you know, everything will just fill into in the right spots, you know, spot like that. You know, it just makes it easier. Sometimes if you kind of use the maths like that, to kind of break things down. You know, and once you've done it a few times, you just better start doing it without these. You know, just make a habit of doing them, like the circle to begin with, the circle for the nose. And those little simple shapes will help start to define the face, and eventually you won't need the dots, and you can basically remove those completely. But for now, people, I hope that's helped you. You know, we'll do a few other ones on different kind of angles and stuff. But for now, I'm the Broken Puppet, and I'll see you next time. Peace.